Let's talk to William Clouston, leader of the Social Democrat Party, and find out what it's all about. William, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Not at all. I was very curious when I saw, funnily enough, on Twitter, which has become a very, very useful tool for politicians and political parties these days, people talking about the Social Democrat Party, but also I was kind of made more curious by Rod Liddle, who came in to do a little interview with us a few weeks ago about his book on Brexit, which is out now, and he told me that he joined the Social Democrats. So can you give us kind of roughly, without going into too many details, what you stand for?
The basic description would be that we're broadly centre-left on economics, small c conservative on cultural issues, family, community, nation, patriotic, and we want to have less focus on the individual and slightly more focus on what we do together. Okay,
and you're pro-Brexit, right?
Very pro-Brexit, yeah. I mean, we support a WTO Brexit. We wouldn't want to have got where we are now. Ideally, I mean, obviously the negotiation has been botched. They accepted the sequencing, and it all went wrong from there. But where we are now, I think the only option that honours Brexit is the WTO arrangement.
So you would welcome a sort of a leaving without a deal scenario then on Halloween?
Yeah, I mean, it's not without a deal because you go to WTO and that is a deal in itself. But yeah, I mean, that literally is the only option we have on the realistic option. Now, you couldn't get any withdrawal agreement through Parliament anyway. There isn't time, so whatever anyone thinks, and the economy can't stand further uncertainty. You've got to just get it done, leave on the 31st, and then there is some uncertainty as to what happens after that, because you could have free trade with the EU if they want it. If they don't want it, then we go to the schedules on the WTO.
Yeah, well, exactly right. I mean, I've always said to people who talk about a deal or a no-deal scenario that everything really is a deal and no deal at the same time, because you can't possibly ever make a deal about everything before you leave. By the same token, when you leave, you've got to have, there will be some things which will already be in position, if you like. So, I mean, no matter what, we will still be negotiating, no doubt, over a period of years, won't we?
Well, that's correct. And I mean, if we do manage, and we must leave at the end of October, we must. And when we do, there'll be negotiations immediately. I suspect what will happen is there'll be some sort of bridging arrangement to keep trade flowing. You've got to remember, it's a base fact that the EU has a trade surplus, something like 93 billion, 95 billion. They put that at risk if they want to put friction in place, but it's their call. I think Johnson, being a sort of liberal free trader, would want to have free trade continued under sort of GATT 24, and he can have that, but he can't demand it as the EU. It's an important distinction. The EU could say, no, we're gonna have tariffs. Well, if they have tariffs, they'll sell fewer cars and cheese and all the rest of it.
Well, exactly. I mean, all these sort of terrible Armageddon style scenarios that we hear. I mean, I was looking at one that was on Newsnight last night, apparently, which I put out on Twitter, where there's talk of culling 27,000 cattle. We hear from the Welsh sheep farmers they're going to have to kill loads of sheep. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, have you ever seen such hysteria?
Well, all of this is going to be ramped up. I mean, you've got to remember that when we decided to leave in the 2016 referendum, we went against the great and the good. We went against all opinion in the academic, media, cultural, political elites, business elites. They didn't approve of what we did. And these people are rule makers, not rule takers. It's the first time in many of their lives that they had to take a reversal like that, and many went literally hysterical. Yeah, so, and they still are being hysterical. Yeah, they are. It's nothing. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun in politics, and probably a lot of your listeners would have seen Peter Shaw's wonderful Oxford Union speech in the 75, and it's Project Fear. It's Project Fear again. And funnily enough, over half the population won't buy this. Listen, increasingly, and one of the reasons this show is becoming more and more popular is because it's one of the few places where you can actually get the unvarnished truth. I'm not pretending that I know precisely what will happen in the future, because I'm not, the Doctor Who. I don't have a crystal ball. But what I do know is that it will not be, pestilence and sort of plagues of locusts and people dropping dead in the street because they haven't got any medicine. It's just not going to happen. I don't by that. I agree. I mean, macroeconomics is about pipe work. International trade is about pipe work. And if it's worth doing a deal and buying something, that product will get to market. Yes, you might have to pay a little bit more for it, but you do anyway. I mean, the currency fluctuation we've had. I mean, most large economies in the world are desperate for their currencies to go down. You know, the Chinese are, the European Union, the euro's overvalued. So we have, thankfully, because we're not in the dreadful euro, we have this safety mechanism in the pound. So no, I mean, but I don't. On the other side of the net, I don't think we should deny there will be adjustments. I mean, there will be some, there will be an adjustment to trade, but you've got to always get back to the fundamentals. Do we want to be part of a sort of self-governing nation state or not? And we do. That's the whole point. That's the primary reason we voted to leave. And I think, yes, there might be some turbulence, but we'll get.
Well, and also we had Nick DeWine here yesterday, who's a former Tory MP, was an aide to Dominic Raab when he was Brexit Secretary, and he pointed out that, Britain is the second biggest economy in the European Union and will still be the second biggest economy in Europe when it leaves the European Union, and therefore, it's not going to suddenly, wither and die on the vine without the life support system from Brussels.
No, it's been astonishingly robust as well. I mean, a lot of the predictions, obviously we had, Osborne's Project Fear, 800,000 job loss, immediate resident. Well, none of that's happened. Nothing like that's happened. And the UK economy is pretty robust. And if you look at growth rates, post-16 growth rates, UK against Eurozone, we've done pretty well.
Sure. And have you always been a Eurosceptic personally, William? I mean, what's your sort of political history?
My father was in the Labour Party, and I'm basically an original, founder member of the SDP. I was in the SDP for the whole of the 80s. I guess when I was young, I was pretty EU, Europhile.
Yeah.
I'm culturally still very, very pro-European, and I think all.
Well, as are we all. Yeah. I mean, the idea that somehow because I'm quite happy to leave the European Union makes me anti-Europe is a nonsense.
It's ludicrous. I mean, Europe's strength is in the diversity of its cultures. Right. And we're pluralists. But yeah, so I stuck with Owen in the 80s when he protected the SDP against this merger with the Liberals. And funnily enough, those of us that stuck with Owen and Owenites, and obviously David Owen's become much more EU skeptic down the years. And I think we've been vindicated. I mean, good call in '88, not going in with the Lib Dems.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. They're now the party of distrust, if you like, because not only I was actually praising them a few weeks ago because I said at least they have stood for one thing and stuck with it. They have always said they didn't want to leave the European Union. But to now come out and say, as Joe Swinson did the other day, that actually if there is a second referendum, which we want, and it goes the wrong way, which we don't want, we won't honour it. I thought that was an extraorinary admission.
It's shocking, really shocking attitudes. And the Lib Dems, I mean, one of the other reasons, actually politically, party politically, why it would be a great idea to honour this in October is that actually the day after pretty much the Brexit Party's finished, and I think the Lib Dems have finished because they're basically now a single issue student protest group, pro-EU, nonsense. But yeah, I mean, I've always been, since certainly the last 25 years, been pretty Eurosceptic, but for the right reasons, for good reasons. I think, there are three, and when I'm in the pub and I speak to Europhiles, I always make three basic points, and they are basically that the British have never shared the vision of a united Europe.
No.
That's just a fact. I mean, you just look at any data, Europe Monitor or Pew or whatever, look at the data. We don't share the vision. It's very foolish to get a country that is not really bought into it to take part in the project. The elites might want it, but we don't, and that's just basic.
And this is a question I put to everyone I ever ask about this particular problem. What is it about those people who are so wedded to the idea of the European Union? Why do you think they are? Because obviously many of our listeners will say things like, oh, well, obviously there's money in it for them. I don't think it's that.
No.
They're looking for a pension from the EU. I don't think it's that.
No.
They're looking, I don't understand why they are so wedded to it.
I think it's basically a division between moderns and progressives and people that are sort of linked to place and have an affinity towards their national culture. But it's not, again, Mike, it's nothing new. You go back to, you read Chesterton, G.K. Chesterton, the turn of the century. He's railing against moderns. And then you go look at Orwell, Lion and the Unicorn. Look at Orwell's views on progressives. Most of them were communist sympathisers and internationalists and universalists, who really, had disdain for anyone that was rooted. They're basically the type of people that prefer French jam to sort of Tiptree. That's the thing. It's a cultural thing, and because it's cultural, it's sort of religious, and it
is almost cult-like, isn't it?
It is cult-like, yeah, and they accuse us of being irrational. This is utterly nonsense, utter nonsense.
Well, one of the things I've been saying lately as well, which is interesting, and I don't know what your view is of Boris Johnson. You're welcome to share it with us.
Yeah.
But what I say now is that the kind of the narrative that all Brexiteers are somehow rather stupid and a bit racist and not very well informed or well educated has gone out the window now, because Downing Street is full of very smart, very intelligent and very sharp young men and women who are putting this Brexit deal together. And so that argument has completely dissipated, hasn't it?
Well, it is, and it was always false anyway. That was a projection by sort of EU partisans on us. You listen to any, well-informed leavers were never like that anyway.
No.
So it was always nonsense.
Okay, so tell us about the Social Democrats and where you are now in the sort of political scheme of things, because presumably your aim is to try and get yourselves elected into as many seats as possible if you can.
Yeah, it is, but I think we need to be realistic about the. I mean, we put out the new declaration. I think if anyone hasn't seen it, go on the website SDP.org and have a look at it. If you like it, consider joining us. If you don't. It's quite a distinct thing, and it's how it basically in politics we're stuck with the establishment parties. You've got every election because of the voting system. You've got this dreadful red or blue choice. Well, that's basically a state of mind. Social Democrats, we have some policies which would be considered on the right, and we have some which would be considered on the left, and it's a combination that we're looking at. And actually, that is where the gap in British politics is. If you look at the work that Matthew Goodwin's done or David Goodhart on where it is, most British people don't buy we want all of Corbynism or all of sort of right-wing liberal, because actually the thing is the Conservatives aren't conservative. They stopped being culturally conservative years ago. So they are. I mean, it's a point Rod Little makes very well.
He does. Well, I mean, the one problem that keeps recurring whenever we talk about the Tory party is that there's not enough Conservatives in it. Well, there's hardly any.
There's hardly any, but I think that again it goes back to the sort of clamped-down voting system we have. If you reformed that, you might get a Conservative party, and I wouldn't agree with them on everything, but some of the social.
I've got a question that's come in from Mark in Northamptonshire who says, could you please ask William what their viewpoint is on universal credit? Sorry to be so specific.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, universal credit, in principle, when it was, the principle of it, we approve of. But on the implementation, I think the Conservatives have been slightly ideological. So basically, bunging people a load of money for the next 4 or 5 weeks and expecting them to have any money at the end, terrible mistake and quite ideological. You're saying to people, you're going to learn perfect budgeting immediately. So we basically would freeze the system, the rollout of the system until they know what they're doing. But in principle, I'm actually in favour of it. But I think the implementation has gone wrong.
Yes, well, much of the implementation of everything lately seems to be cack-handed, as to be said. William, listen, it's delightful to talk to you. Thank you for coming on. We'll get you back on again because there's clearly a lot more to talk about. Because I think the theme that British politics is kind of broken is very much going to be a recurring theme, and it's not going to be fixed anytime soon. So good luck with it. We'll talk to you again soon. William Clouston, the leader of the SDP, a man who seems, on the face of it, a very reasonable politician, does he not?